Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Amber Wenger. I am very new to painting, and I am just here to kind of share some of my experiences with you, and perhaps we can learn things together. So here I have some titanium white paint. It does come from Gaffrey Art Materials. I will be linking them below if you want to go buy some of that. And then the colors that I'm using are Sennelier packets. I bought those from the Cheap Joe's website. I like to mix them together because the Sennelier has a very rich color composition, and then the Gaffrey paint, they have less of a range of colors and they focus a lot on their textures, which are just so beautiful to work with. So I'm going to attempt to show you how I roll, and hopefully you enjoy this. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going for some nice pastel pink flowers. I have, I believe, quinacridone, rose, and magenta, like a deep magenta, which I am mixing with my white paint. And then here I have just some clear. Both the clear and the white come from Gaffrey Art Materials, and they may show up a little bit as though they're the same thing on camera right now, but when they dry, the white is very, very opaque, and the clear is only opaque in some of the thicker areas. So in the very thin areas, you'll get a very delicate look, almost like stained glass. If you wanted to do like very thin, but a very rich, like a very thin petal, but with a very rich color, you could use clear, and then they would be like almost see-through, but they would still have that vibrancy. So that's certainly something you guys could play around with if you're looking for things to experiment with. I have yet to make those myself. I just, these days I do have my whole days to myself because I am still rehabbing my leg at this point. Back in December, I broke my leg because I was heelying, and yes, heelys are usually for kids, but I decided I wanted some for Christmas, and my husband bought them for me, and I had so much fun. I heelied around for about 24 hours before I fell, and for some reason I just snapped my leg, and I needed to have surgery, and now I have a titanium rod in my tibia, and I didn't walk for 3 months, and in that time I certainly became very frustrated with not being able to do very much. And so one of the things that I was doing is I was going online and watching like Justin Gaffrey, the guy who invented these paints. I was watching a lot of his videos, and I was watching a lot of just textured art videos in general, and I was very inspired. And so I started by just I had like my supplies around me on the floor. I couldn't walk. I had to use my crutches for, oh God, I think I used my crutches for like 4.5 months. It was so long. I thought it was never gonna end. And I would just set up my painting supplies on the floor in front of the couch, and I would just paint for hours and watch more videos and learn more things and learn more techniques. And I mean, it's been very fun, and I've been able to learn a lot very quickly. But it's just kind of crazy because this kind of circumstance is never really available to people, I feel like, where you just get to stay home and watch YouTube and learn about something you want to learn about. So I'm certainly grateful for this silver lining of this odd little cloud of a broken leg, which, by the way, it's like my first broken bone ever. So it's been a humbling experience for me for sure. Um, and I am just grateful that I have new experiences now, because I am a nurse. I had never, as an adult, really been a patient in a hospital up until December, and it gave me a valuable perspective, um, about what it's like to be a patient and how things work in the hospital as a patient and stuff like that. So I certainly don't hate that I broke my leg. There's just a lot of pain associated with it, and I look forward to living a more pain-free life on the daily once I'm stronger again, but for right now my tendonitis is still keeping me from walking a lot. So I spend a lot of time just mixing paints, sitting here with my rotating cake stand under my light and filming myself piping flowers and making paintings. So yeah, I'm not very great. Like, I'm not very talented or anything when it comes to filming and stuff like that. So I have just kind of been learning as I go. And so I hope that my videos will continue to become cooler and more beautiful as I learn about what I'm doing a little bit better. But I'm just trying to film and share what I can. I don't know much, but I do have a lot of experiences, so uh, I am happy to share things with you guys if you want to know them. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just making some hibiscus flowers. I am using, I forget what the size is of this piping tip. I'll have to link that down below if I find out where I got it, because a few of these, a friend had given us some cake decorating equipment when she was moving and didn't want to take things with her. And so I just got them donated to me, and I don't know all of the sizes of what I'm using. And here's another thing. So I am piping the flowers onto parchment paper. It's very important that you use parchment paper and not wax paper. I thought they were one and the same, and it turns out they are not. Parchment just acts completely differently. It has a different layer on it, and it's less susceptible to the water that is in the paint. So as it evaporates, it acts differently. Let's see. So right now I'm just making these super cute little baby pink ones. It's really just a circle, and then I'm piping 3 petals on top. And this is not modeled after any real life flowers that I know. I just kind of make them up as I go along. And then sometimes you just happen upon a very exciting new style of flower. I encourage you guys to experiment as much as you feel comfortable with. It seems I always learn a lot every time I experiment, so I love having new experiences and learning new things, so of course I'm pro that. So these are, I think these are going to be dry in a few days. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some centers in there at a later time. You can put in centers at the same time, but sometimes if you put wet paint on wet paint, it could mix a little bit. It could be a little bit squashier, if you will. I usually just have, I usually just do whatever I feel like doing that day, but I have noticed that things do get a different result. So I do like doing them a few days later after they dry. I like to put the centers in because then I can actually touch the flower and maneuver it a little bit and all that stuff. And besides, they do shrink a little bit when they are drying. So if you put little dots like close together, they'll shrink back from each other, and then you'll have more open spots. So sometimes it's good to wait until they're dry to fill them in. That can just be a helpful thing. Again, there's no rules. You don't have to do it any certain way. I'm just sharing my experiences, and hopefully they're valuable in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know if you just noticed, but I just put white in the bag. I'd already had a little bit of pink in there, and so I really like the stripy mixing of the paint that I get when I do something like that. Of course, you could always start over with a new bag if you wanted, and you could put your colors all together. And I mean, you can do literally so many things with this type of paint. So that's why I say experiment if you can. It's very, very fun. All right, I am back. I had to step away for a moment. All right, so I don't remember what I was saying, but I am sure if it is relevant, it will come back to me. Yeah, this pink is very washed out on camera, unfortunately. Maybe it's my lighting. I'll be experimenting with the lighting. So sometimes you make flowers too that just don't work out, or maybe you envisioned it start to finish it would look a certain way, and sometimes it doesn't turn out, and that's okay too. Like, it's not a big deal. You just kind of go with the flow, and then as give me one moment. All right, so at this point, I am out of paint, and therefore I need to fill it up. So I have some of my Gaffrey titanium white here again, and it's really easy if you want just the super cute pastel flower to just use the rest of the pigment that is inside the bag as the only pigment, and then only filling up with a white paint. I think it gives a lot of detail that is super easy to achieve, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. But I really like the striation and the, I guess, variety that you get with making flowers like this. They just, that way each and every one of them is gonna be a little bit different, and I think that's one of the joys of making art, is that you get to make things that are different. You get to make stuff. So that's one of my favorite things about art, I guess. And so here I am going with the new style flower. I'm just piping a circle. I believe oh yeah, I'm going for a rose here. So I'm leaving just a little bit of a spot inside for when I want to come and put in a center. But it did get a little bit, I don't like to call my flowers ugly, but sometimes they are not as effortlessly beautiful as other flowers. They need a little bit more dressing up before I'm ready to put them on the canvas. And this is one of them, but that's okay. They shrink a little bit as they dry, and you can use that to your advantage. And sometimes as they dry, like on day 1 or day 2, you can readjust the petals a bit because the center of the flower isn't dry yet, but the ridges should all hold their place. So you can just you can practice a little bit and move things around and do what you want. Here I'm going for a rose, so I made the center. It's just kind of a building it up about 1/2 inch, and then put 3 petals. And here's the thing, I usually go for 3 petals inside and then 5 outside, or 5 in the middle. So we got 3, 4, and then 5. All right, so I did it right that time. So then the next layer would have 7. So let's see, sometimes it just doesn't work out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I added that one. And so those two are overlapping, so I overshot it a little bit. But here's the thing, you can't get better if you don't practice. And while you're practicing, you're gonna make a lot of a wide variety of things. And so that's the thing about practice. It just really helps you hone your craft to where you want it to be. And I think that it's so unfair for us to be cruel to ourselves and not allow ourselves to learn, because we wouldn't say to other people, hey, you're not learning fast enough. So why would we do that to ourselves? Allow yourself some grace while you grow, just as long as you're, improving or moving in the general direction you want to go. So sometimes I'll use a circle to put that center in, but a lot of times I'm just really lazy, and so I just use whatever the piping tip is that I'm using. Sometimes it doesn't really work out depending what viscosity your paints are, depending if you've like mixed them with a lot of different paints that weren't from Gaffrey. And sometimes your flower petals will fall. I mean, I am no expert. I don't have very many answers about how to do things. A lot of times when I'm making the flowers, I just tend to either have good days or bad days. Like some days the flowers just don't turn out and I just can't make it work. And you know what? On those days, I just put my painting supplies away. I try something else. I, sit outside. I find something else to do, because there's sometimes you need to push through, and other times it's just a matter of, you know what, maybe you just need a break. And it's been a helpful thought process for me, because I love to stay busy, but I don't love to stay busy to the extent of, I am resenting what I am doing because I just can't stop. No, I love being alone. I love being alone with my thoughts. But but I do also like to share things, and it's just about enjoying life and doing what you can when it's appropriate. Look at that. See, and they tend to get a lot lighter in color as you go on, and so sometimes it's nice to mix a color again. And as you can see, I reuse my wax paper multiple times. I just fold it over and it becomes a new palette. So I try not to waste. If I can help it, I try really hard not to. So here I'm mixing both white and clear, and that's just so that my white has more of a delicate opacity to it, or sorry, more of a delicate look to it and less opacity. And then here I think I added some cad red, I think. Maybe I'll mix it at some point today. It's so funny when I do these voiceovers because I don't really remember what I was thinking while I was doing it. And when my hands go off camera, I don't really remember what was going through my head. Maybe I should start doing a voiceover along with commentary as I go. But that just seems like a lot of work. I don't know. I'm only capable of so much, and I already do a lot of things as it is, just because I like to. But I don't know. I'm always working hard on something, it seems. It's just a matter of what is it this week that will get top priority of my attention. So this just becomes like a really lovely pink. And now that the bag has white on the inside, kind of like that pinkish white, it's taken down the starkness of the titanium white. And so now it's just going to be like this beautiful, delicate pink. And you'll be able to see it in a minute. And I just like to scoop it and scrape it on in there. You're going to want to try and avoid air pockets. With experience, you will understand what I mean. But basically, air pockets just create weird little bursts of air, and then paint goes everywhere and you lose control, and sometimes your flowers end up a little lopsided because of it. But that's the thing. If you want to do stuff like this, you have to be willing to invest time and energy into it, and sometimes you don't want to, and that's okay, like at least that's what I tell myself as as I'm looking at wonderful artworks done by other amazing artists, and I am capable of a lot, but I'm not always capable of doing all the things, right? And so one of the things I just tell myself is I can do whatever I want, but it will take time and energy. So am I going to be willing to sacrifice time and energy to learning about this craft? Is it so meaningful to me that I want to have this new skill that I'm willing to sacrifice for it? And I think it's good to be honest with ourselves like that, because that way you don't really resent things that you let go, because you know, well, yeah, I considered it and I'm not willing to put in that effort right now. And I think it's great if we can be honest with ourselves, and if we understand why we're doing stuff. It just helps us, gain a deeper understanding of everything. And I'm just here to gain knowledge and experience and have a good time. So, come hang out with me. It's great stuff. Feel free to ask me questions. I'll tell you things about my life. I've got tons of Mennonite stories. I have nursing stories. I have traveling stories. I'm writing a book, but you know what? Some days I just don't frickin' want to write a book. Like, I just really don't want it. And you know what? So I don't. Because I realize that if I resent my book for all the time and energy I am choosing to devote to it, it will lose its beauty. And I'm willing to just take my time if that means it'll be better. So it might take me a few years to get it cranked out, but eventually I will share my story somehow, for those of you who want to hear it. So this is one of those flowers where I think I just had an air bubble. So one of the petals got all sideways and floppy, and then my foundation was kind of compromised. But those are the flowers that usually benefit from waiting a day or two and letting them dry a little bit externally, and then shifting them a little bit. You can just squish them in the palm of your hand. Like, shh, don't tell anyone. It's literally so simple. You just need to have space. You can see my table here. It is so dirty. It is covered in paint. It is not our kitchen table that we eat at, so I have not chosen to keep it very clean. And that's another thing, you know, when you're talking about sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice space in your home for this new craft that you're interested in? And sometimes, you know, the answer is yes, and you just sit on the living room floor in front of your couch and you make paintings on the floor because you can't walk. And I think there's beauty in all the walks of life, and I love to hear other people's stories about how they became who they are. It's just so cool. I'm just ready for my leg to be healed so I can go out in the community and see faces and say hi and, you know, ask people about themselves again. I swear, I feel like I should, on my channel, I need to interview people, and just share the interviews with you guys, because I feel like whenever I meet a new person, I basically go through like interview style questions. I'm like, oh cool, hi, you know, how are you, what's your name, and where are you from, and what made you choose this career, and why do you do the things that you like to do, and all that stuff. And I just like to know about people. I like to share, I like to hear experiences, you know. I think it's so cool. Like, I mean, I know a lot of things, as in I've had a lot of experiences, but my perception, I mean, I've only ever perceived life from my point of view. You know, I'd love to hear stories from other people's points of views too. So, I love conversation. It's a great thing. See, and look, this rose is just, ooh, it is so beautiful. A lot of these turned out really well. Look at that. And I think every one of these roses is slightly a different shade, and I'm okay with that. I know there are some people who would prefer to keep everything the same shade, and if you want to do that, just mix all your colors before you put them in the piping bag. You know, don't do 2 or 3 tones like I do. You can keep things very much the same. I just really like to keep things different, and so I do that intentionally, but it's not like it's the only choice. FYI. And sometimes when I get to the end, I just make a lot of swirly flowers like this. You can do whatever you want with them, like you can make them fancy, you can just leave them kind of disheveled looking. I do a lot of different styles of artworks, and so I just feel like every flower that I make just has like a different purpose, you know. I am not stuck to like one type of style or anything like that. I don't know. I'm always evolving. I'm always changing. For example, recently I was thinking, wow, I really need to start sewing again. I really miss sewing. And I don't really have the space for it right now, so I really can't be doing that. But it's just like you get little nudges of inspiration, and well, I like to follow them. All right, so now we're going to move on and try some orange. And this is Azo Orange from Gaffrey Art Materials. And I think here I'm just adding some white. Pretty sure it's white. Oh, I'm doing white and clear. Okay, so the Azo Orange is a very heavily pigmented color. And it is not as heavily textured as, for example, the titanium white is from Gaffrey Art Materials. So different colors do come out to be different consistencies. And although I could pipe the orange by itself, it's not going to give me the same beautiful, unwavering kind of texture, kind of anti-gravity texture, if you will. And so I really do like to add something to it because it makes it so much easier to work with. And then here I'm just mixing in the last bit of paint that I had from the pink. That way it can be more cohesive. And then I just get this lovely kind of tangerine color. I don't know how that fell in, but okay. And of course, even mixing the paint is fun, so I really enjoy what I do. So I believe this is called a coupler, if I'm right. You do not need one of these in order to use the piping tips, but if you have one of them and you have piping tips that are in the same set, you can interchange them. You can unscrew it and put on a different tip. That way you can use the same color but create different designs. Whereas if you put the tip inside the bag, then you're stuck with that tip and that design for that color, I mean. And there's different days when I choose different things. But when I'm doing centers, sometimes it's fun to have different tips on hand. So this one I did mix all together, and so this is going to be a very consistent color inside the bag. I didn't mix it as well as I could have. There's still slight variation or variegation in there, but not much at all. You know what? I think I remember this, and I think I didn't like the flowers. But it's okay. I'll hang in with you guys, and we'll see what happens. Maybe. Oh, my bag burst and then I had paint coming out the side. It was a huge mess. Ugh. But see, you slap some paint on there and call it a day. Move on. So, this is one of those tips that I don't have a lot of practice in yet, and I'm not very comfortable with creating things that I like, I guess. Something about the way that it works, I just can't seem to make a beautiful flower with it yet. But I keep working on it. You know, maybe one of these days it'll just click. Sometimes it's like that. All right, so let's try this again. See, sometimes it starts coming out looking like it's going somewhere, and then I can't quite seem to get in the right flow. Oh, that's all right. I could still use the practice, so. And that's the cool thing about these tips is that they get you can change them around and stuff like that. See, I'm just too these tips just don't go happily with me. I don't know. I can't quite seem to use them consistently. But I wanted to show you, like, this is what happens when I make ugly flowers. So basically what I ended up doing is scraping them off and then putting them in a different piping bag. Sometimes you just, you know, scrap it and start over. And then I just squeeze in the rest of that, and as you can see, the bag was really just a whole mess. But that's just how it goes sometimes, you know, like sometimes it is just not your day. And, well, let me just tell you, I have plenty of days that are not my day. So here's just a very, here's a different thing you can do is you can use a piping nail where you do hold it and then you just pivot it. I think I just prefer to use my cake stand. I don't know that I really get much of a different angle on it or anything like that if I'm doing it like this. And if you ask me, it's almost more difficult this way. I mean, obviously, it could just be because I haven't really used it much. That could absolutely 1,000% be the case. Um, but it just didn't feel as easy to me to hold the pen. And I think here I'm just using a 101 tip, if I'm correct. It's quite small, or maybe this is the medium-sized one. I believe this is the medium-sized one. I do have two drop tips. One is medium, one is small, and then I have one that's large that is a similar shape, but it's more squared off at the bottom. And that's the one that I use for the rose. And I really truly don't know what's the number on that. I will have to check next time I'm upstairs to see if it has a number on it. But yeah, if you guys are like thrift shoppers or anything, you could go to the thrift store. You might be able to find some cake decorating stuff there that you could use, you know, to pipe paint. That's another thing about me. I really love thrift shopping, and that's why if you see my clothes, they are painty and they are comfy. They are not super fancy, and that is okay. And that is how I'm comfortable painting. And my local thrift store has some great deals usually, so I am able to access clothes whenever I need them, which is wonderful. Well, I really appreciate, I'm just thinking, today a memory popped up on my Facebook about me as just dancing out in the grass, like twirling around in a dress I'd just made. And that was, I believe, back in 2017. And that was pretty soon after I moved in with Ruben. And I was just, I was so in love with life. I had just left my Mennonite family, like I'd just been kicked out, and I was really integrating easily into regular society. And yeah, I still am just so happy to have freedom and to be able to choose my own outfits, because one of the things about being Mennonite is you don't get to choose your own clothes. You kind of are given a pattern to follow, and everyone kind of, you know, dresses in a similar fashion. Of course, women have their own styles, girls have their own styles and stuff like that, because what fits a mother, you know, is gonna fit a child differently, but they have templates, you know, for guidelines of what to wear. And you know, I think a lot of people don't even realize, but small freedoms like that. I think a lot of times it's easy to take stuff for granted when we've just had it our whole lives, but that is one of the things I have not had my whole life, and I am just super thrilled that I am free to choose my own clothes, you know, and if you think I'm weird because of that, then so be it. I don't care. But I love life, and I appreciate that I am able to choose so many things for myself, because there was a large chunk of my life where that was not possible. And that is why I'm always so encouraging of people following